Hey guys, tonight we begin with something a little darker, a world of cannon smoke, creaking leather, and quiet frostbite. We're diving into what life was really like in Napoleon's army. And no, it's not a perfume ad or a war epic. It's dump boots, bad stew, and a sergeant with breath like burnt onions. You probably wouldn't last a single day. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up with your face pressed into burlap, not a pillow that's a luxury from your past life. No, this is your greatcoat, wadded beneath your head like a soggy dog, and it smells like vinegar, old cheese, and whatever died in the last ditch you slept near. You blink once and realize two things. The sun isn't up yet, and someone just stepped on your foot. Again, congratulations. You've just woken up in 1804 France, and you're a soldier in Napoleon's Grande Armée, but don't let that name fool you. There's nothing particularly grand about it this morning. Your camp is quiet except for the wet sounds of men stretching, grunting, spitting, and swearing in 6 different dialects. The fire burned out hours ago. Your breath fogs the air in thin, fraying strands. You're lying in a half-frozen field with 20 other poor souls, all rolled up in their damp cloaks like sad, woolly sausages. One guy is already up trying to coax a spark from a handful of twigs and hope. The ground is unforgiving. It's always the same. Rocks poking your spine, a root wedged under your hip. Your back cracks when you sit up. You're 24, but your knees argue like you're 74. And somewhere nearby, a mule is relieving itself with theatrical enthusiasm. It's a charming place to wake. There's no blanket, no tent, just canvas overhead if you're lucky. And if not, you share the night sky with the lice. You scratch automatically. They're always there in the seams of your cuffs, nestled in your collar, plotting world domination under your armpit. You don't remember when you enlisted, not clearly. It was either after the taxes broke you, or the harvest failed, or your brother was conscripted and someone had to go with him. Either way, here you are. France is at war with half the continent, and your reward is a shiver, a crust of bread, and the joy of being yelled at by men on horses. Someone passes you a canteen. You swig. It's not water. You're not sure what it is. Maybe someone steeped a boot in weak wine. Whatever it is. It's cold and mildly insulting, but it wakes you up faster than the bugle. You stand slowly. The fog sticks to your eyelashes. You rub your face with a gloved hand that used to be leather, but now mostly resembles a bandage made of damp regrets. Your breath rattles in your chest. But you're used to that now. You're used to everything now, the smell, the weight, the strange way your feet slide inside your socks when they're too wet to argue. You look around. Someone's already arguing over a missing boot. Someone else is feeding a mouse with hardtack. And in the distance, rising above the frostbitten trees, you hear the faintest thud of hooves. Another day in Napoleon's army has begun. You lace your boots while half standing, half balancing on the frozen earth, swearing softly at the stiff leather and the fact that your fingers don't quite bend the way they used to. The laces are crusted with mud from 3 countries ago, and the eyelets are more decorative suggestion than functioning loop at this point. One boot has a hole in the toe, a permanent window to your increasingly alarming sock. The other just sort of leans to the left now, like it's given up. The soles flap when you walk. Not ideal, but you're not picky anymore. You'd sell your soul for a dry pear. But for now, you just wedge a bit of cloth inside to keep your toes from divorcing you. Your breakfast, if it can be called that, is waiting by the fire, someone finally convinced into life. It's the same thing as yesterday and the day before that. A chunk of bread that could deflect a musket ball, half a boiled carrot, and whatever mystery meat ended up in the tin pot. Last week it was horse. This week, nobody's asking. There's a game you all play now. Is it still warm? Spoiler, it never is. You chew in silence, gnawing at the crust like a starved dog working on a fence post. The bread breaks before your teeth do, but not by much. There's a sliver of gristle stuck between your molars, and you make a mental note to ask Jacques if he still has that splintered toothpick from camp last month. Someone belches nearby. Someone else is snoring despite being upright. And across the field, you hear a trumpet try to play a reveille before sputtering into what sounds like a goat's final breath. The trumpeter coughs. No one reacts. It's not the worst note you've heard today. As you sit, you try to ignore the itch. It's back, right at your waistband. You scratch discreetly, then less discreetly, then with vigor. You're not alone. All around you, men are squirming like possessed marionettes, each conducting his own silent war against the invisible legions in his undergarments. One man is shirtless, picking something off his chest with the solemnity of a priest at mass. The lice are winning. They always win. You once met a corporal who claimed he could hear them breathing. He didn't last long. Either the lice got him, or the war did. Hard to say. Someone near the fire mutters about mail, says a runner came in last night with satchels from Lyon. Maybe today's the day you get a letter. Or maybe it went to the other regiment again. The one whose captain can actually read. Either way, the thought of home stirs something small and sore in your chest. You stretch, which is optimistic. Your spine cracks in 3 different languages. Your shoulders ache from yesterday's march, and the muscles in your legs feel like wet rope stiff. Frayed and quietly resentful, you adjust your coat. It smells like wet dog and long-forgotten ambition. The lining's mostly gone, eaten by time or insects, possibly both. There's a moment, a strange quiet, where you sip whatever's left in your cup cold, brown, vaguely alcoholic, and look out over the camp. Smoke curling into the grey sky, men crouched over flames. The occasional curse, somewhere. A rooster crows like it still believes in things. This is your life now. Wool, smoke, sugar bread, and body odor. And it's not even 6 a.m. The bell rings. Not a church bell. Those are back home, reserved for weddings and warnings. No, this is a bent scrap of iron, hung from a tree with rope and beaten rhythmically by a drummer with frostbitten hands. It rings like Judgment Day for your spine. Drill time. You groan. Everyone groans. It's a chorus of men who would rather face enemy fire than another hour of standing in lines just to be told they're doing it wrong. You grab your musket. It's heavy, awkward, and inexplicably colder than the air itself. You still haven't figured out how it does that. The strap digs into your shoulder like it holds a personal grudge. You sling it anyway. The sergeant is already screaming, voice hoarse from decades of tobacco and loathing. He's the kind of man who seems to grow taller when angry. Like rage fills in the empty places where kindness should be. He stalks the rows, pointing out errors that are largely imaginary and occasionally contradictory. Back straight, not that straight. You call that a grip. My aunt holds a spoon firmer. She's dead. You're never sure if that last part is a joke or a trauma confession. You form rank with the others, shoulder to shoulder. Steam rising off your backs like overcooked sausages. The man to your right smells like garlic and fear. The man to your left has not blinked since yesterday. The drill begins. Present arms, shoulder arms, load, fire, repeat, again and again. The rhythm is hypnotic, broken only when someone fumbles. A dropped musket earns you a whack with a cane. A misfire gets you a look that could curdle cream. Your fingers go numb, then they burn. Then they stop registering at all. The cold slips into your sleeves, your boots, your bones. But you keep going because the alternative is worse, standing still and being selected for additional motivation. No one wants additional motivation. It often involves mud and yelling. Eventually, a boy named Henri drops his powder horn. It explodes into a cloud of black dust and shame. The sergeant marches over, looking like he's about to start a duel with gravity itself. Henri flinches before the blow even lands. But today, miraculously, the sergeant just sighs. "Pick it up," he growls. "And next time, pretend you're not asleep." Henri nods so fast, his hat falls off. And then, for one strange moment, the sergeant looks at the rest of you and says, "What do you want me to clap, move you march? Not into battle, not yet. Just in circles, through the slush and over old ashes." Drills aren't meant to teach anymore. They're meant to exhaust you enough to stop thinking. You think anyway. You think about how long it's been since you saw a real town. A clean floor, a barmaid who didn't flinch when you smiled. You wonder what day it is. Then realize it doesn't matter. Days are just repetitions now, like the drills, like the steps, like the orders. 1, 2, shoulder. 1, 2, fire. 1, 2, march. You don't need a calendar when your life ticks by in musket drills. You've done 6 drills in a row and your arms are jelly. Your musket feels heavier than it did an hour ago, and your brain is a slow stew of instructions and insults. You wipe your face on your sleeve, which helps nothing, and stare at the sergeant's boots as he paces. They're polished, somehow, probably by someone with trembling hands and a deep fear of public beatings. You once thought war would feel like a drum roll, like something out of a painting. Men charging, trumpets blaring, swords raised in the golden light. Instead, it's mostly standing and waiting and being scolded. Did you expect glory? You're more likely to get trench foot. It's not that you're weak. You're not. You've survived things that would turn most men into statues 3 weeks with no soap. Lice in your eyelids. A tent that collapsed in a storm and somehow caught fire anyway. You've marched across 3 countries, eaten things you can't describe without wincing, and woken up beside corpses. But this eternal standing in mud, while a man with a stick explains how to aim like your arms aren't numb. This breaks you in a different way. Your stomach growls, loudly. The man beside you gives you a look. You both start laughing quiet, breathless, the kind of laugh that's not really funny but feels like rebellion anyway. The sergeant glares. You straighten up, the sky's still grey. That's all it ever is now. Grey, with a chance of drizzle and occasional cannon fire. You've forgotten what it's like to sweat from heat instead of stress, or to smell bread without also smelling feet. Drill ends with no ceremony, no trumpet, just a grunt from the officer and a wave of his gloved hand like he's brushing away a particularly dull thought. You're dismissed, which means you can sit on a rock and contemplate how long it's been since your last bath. The answer is don't. A few men sit nearby, already trading stories that start with "you think this is bad" and end with someone being shot in the foot, or someone else marrying a goat in Portugal. You don't ask. You know better. You pull off your left boot to check the damage. Your sock comes with it fused to your heel by cold, and whatever spilled in it during the last march. You wince. The skin's a shade of grey that doesn't seem medically sound. And you wiggle your toes just to prove you can. They respond, but they're angry about it. You sit back, watch the smoke from a distant fire curl into the low sky. Someone starts humming. Another guy is already asleep. Mouth open, snoring like he's allergic to silence. And you think, not for the first time, that maybe the worst part of war isn't the fighting. It's the part where nothing happens at all. The uniform looks good if you've never worn it. From a distance, it's sharp. Royal blue coat, white lapels, gold buttons, dashing. Really, the kind of thing that looks impressive in paintings, but from up close, it's a mobile prison made of wool. Sweat and regret. You button it up anyway, like it's the only thing holding your dignity together. The fabric is stiff in the wrong places and threadbare in the right ones. The collar scratches your neck like it's trying to draw blood, and the shoulders built for a man who definitely wasn't you. You think he was taller? Or maybe just less hunched from carrying 40 pounds of equipment and trauma. The inside lining is gone, torn out by a rat or a fellow soldier or both. One of your sleeves is safety pinned, where a cannon blast once made your elbow irrelevant. And no matter what you do, it never quite dries. Not in winter. Not in summer. Not even near fire. Always damp. Always warm in the wrong spots. Like a hug from a diseased goat, you pull on your breeches. They smell like old beer and newer sin. The buttons are mismatched brass. Bone? Maybe one made from a lucky tooth. The fabric is tight where it shouldn't be and loose where you wish it wasn't. But hey, at least they don't fall down. Animore. And then come the boots. Ah. Yes. The boots. Leather. Once. Now more idea than object. Cracked. Stiff. And alarmingly loud when wet. The left one squeaks. The right one wheezes. You've stuffed so much straw in them. You've started to sprout. You once found a beetle. Named it. It left you for a better boot. You wrap your greatcoat over it all. It's heavy. Smells like every man who's worn it since 1798. And you're pretty sure it's housing a family of moths, but it keeps the wind off your bones. And that's all you really care about. Someone to your left is tightening their belt with a stick. Someone to your right is trying to clean their uniform with snow. Neither is working. You check your reflection in a muddy puddle. Bad idea. You look like a disgraced scarecrow that fell into a river and got conscripted. Your face is sunken. Beard uneven. Eyes shadowed by months of sleep that never quite landed. Your hair's doing something between revolution and retreat. But it doesn't matter. You're dressed. You're standing. That's enough. Somewhere in the distance, an officer rides past on a gleaming horse. His coat crisp, boots polished, everything clean. You wonder if he even sweats. He doesn't look like he knows how. He glances in your direction, doesn't see you. Just a sea of same, a forest of faces beneath a fog of breath. You watch him go, then return to tightening your boot. The left one's flapping again, because you're not here to impress. You're here to survive. You scratch again, this time with purpose, digging under your collar like a man excavating for treasure. There's something in there. You know it. You can feel the tiny feet, the smug confidence of a well-fed louse that has claimed your neckline as its kingdom. Lice are not guests here. They are residents. You've named 3 of them. One you suspect has started a family. The others just bite and run like guerrilla soldiers. You've tried everything, boiling your shirt, rubbing vinegar into your sleeves, praying. Nothing works. They always come back. Tenacious little patriots. You glance to your left and see Claude, your tent mate and occasional philosopher, holding a spoon against his scalp like a man testing soup. He's using the curved edge to comb his hair, or what's left of it, trying to scoop out the invaders. His face is deadpan. You know they like music, he mutters, flicking something into the grass. I hum, and they dance. You believe him. Sort of. You once met a man who swore by sulfur powder, another who rubbed garlic into his boots to keep the fleas out. A third swore that sleeping with your trousers inside out tricked the lice into abandoning ship. None of it worked. One poor soul even tried shaving everything head to toe. Looked like a plucked chicken, caught pneumonia, and died. The lice moved on. There are contests now. Unofficial honest. Who caught the fattest louse? Who found one on his eyebrow? Who ate one by mistake in his soup and didn't even flinch? It's gallows humor. But it passes the time. The lice have become mascots, enemies, roommates. Some men even joke they're French loyal, stubborn, and impossible to exile. Your skin itches in places too impolite to scratch in public, so you shuffle away from the fire, behind a wagon wheel, and deal with it like a man by swearing softly and contorting yourself into odd shapes, hoping no one's watching. They are. Of course they are. But no one judges. Everyone's done it. The absurdity of it hits you sometimes. Here you are, wearing a uniform that's supposed to represent glory, power, empire, and you're scratching your thigh like a dog who's been rolling in straw. Your kingdom is your torso. Your war is with insects. Claude joins you, holding up a shirt with the solemn pride of a man displaying a war trophy. He points to 3 lice he's managed to drown in a tin cup. The aristocrats, he says, fat from feeding on sergeants. You nod. Offer him a bite of your biscuit, he declines. Too many crumbs, he says. They use them for shelter. The sky begins to shift, pale blue bleeding into grey. Somewhere in the ranks, a man is playing a jaw harp, twangy and sad. It fits. You scratch one last time, then stop. Not because you're done, but because your fingernails are tired. The lice remain. You tuck your shirt in tighter. They've won this round. Breakfast is a group hallucination held together by hope, hunger, and a dented pot of despair. You gather around the fire with the others, each man holding something vaguely bowl-shaped wood, tin, or the concave half of a helmet that probably saw better days back at Austerlitz. The cook, who may once have had a name but is now just called Chef Misery, ladles out something that steams. That's the only compliment it gets. It smells edible. Vaguely, there are roots in it, or parts of roots, a shred of meat, possibly horse, possibly rat. Someone whispers it might be donkey. No one cares. You get your portion and find a place to sit on a damp log. The stew, let's call it stew, is thick, greyish, and has a top layer that peels like old paint. You stir it and watch a bubble form. Then pop, releasing a scent that makes your stomach grumble and your soul retreat. You eat anyway, because that's what breakfast is out here. Surrender. The bread comes next. A hunk of it, round and solid, the size and consistency of a paving stone. You've been using the same piece for 3 days. You just gnaw around the mold. Someone jokes that it's growing teeth of its own. You laugh with your mouth closed. There's talk of coffee. Always talk. You remember what coffee smells like: dark, earthy, holy. What you have instead is a black liquid that could strip paint and maybe already has. It's hot, which is its only virtue. You sip it and feel your stomach prepare for battle. It growls in protest. You ignore it. Around you, the men eat in silence or trade quiet insults. Smells like something died in that pot. That's because something did. Yeah. Yesterday's optimism. Someone laughs. Someone coughs. Someone farts with such volume that even the horses flinch. You chew slowly, carefully. A pebble hides in the bread and nearly cracks your molar. It wouldn't be the first time. You spit it out and keep chewing. Claude sits beside you, inspecting a questionable carrot. It's looking back at me. He mutters. You both stare at it. He eats it anyway. The fire crackles. Boots steam. A man across from you has fallen asleep mid-bite. Spoon still in his mouth, like he's holding on to hope by the handle. You stare into your bowl and wonder, not for the first time, what your mother would think of this. She used to make warm soup on Sundays. With herbs, with actual vegetables. She'd hum while she stirred. You don't remember the song anymore, but the warmth, that memory sticks. You slurp the last of your breakfast and wish it didn't taste like sadness. The bowl's empty. You're still hungry. You lick it anyway. The letter comes just before midday. Tucked inside the satchel of a courier with cracked lips and a 1,000-yard stare. He doesn't say a word as he drops the bundle near the command tent, just grunts and walks away like a man who's forgotten how to care. You wait. No one rushes. No one ever does. There's a process unspoken, but understood. Officers first, then the clerks, then the men who know someone with decent handwriting. You're not one of them. Eventually, a corporal reads names off a list. His voice is slow, indifferent. Claude elbows you when yours is called. The letter is smudged, folded 4 times, and smells faintly of lavender and damp barn. The paper feels like treasure, brittle at the edges, and heavier than it should be. You stare at it for a moment before asking Jacques, the old man with the steady hands and priest-like patience, to read it for you. He nods, wipes his glasses on a rag that might once have been white, and begins. It's from your sister. She says the goats are breeding like sinners, that father's cough has improved, and that someone named Lucille keeps asking about you, even though she swears she's moved on. The harvest was decent. The priest is still boring, and they finally fixed the hole in the roof. You nod along, pretending to remember what home smelled like. Hay, firewood, soap that only got used for special guests. You remember sleeping in a real bed, even if it squeaked. You remember bread that didn't shatter. Your sister writes that she hopes you're warm. You laugh at that, not bitterly, just softly, like it's the best joke you've heard in weeks. Warm. Right. The letter ends with a single line that Jacques reads slower than the rest. We pray for you every night. Come home with both legs. You fold the paper and tuck it into your coat, next to your heart, next to the place that used to ache all the time but now just feels quiet. Claude gets a letter too. His is shorter, from a woman he pretends not to love. She writes in short sentences with too many exclamation marks. Claude smiles when he reads it, then tears it into small pieces and drops them into the fire. One by one. Better that way. He says, love shouldn't have to travel this far. You don't argue. Another man near you hasn't received anything. Again, he shrugs like it doesn't matter, but his hands shake when he buttons up his coat. That's the thing with letters. They either warm you or hollow you. And today, you're lucky enough to feel both. You've stopped counting the strange little rituals that keep the men sane. There's the drummer who spits on his boots before every march, convinced it wards off blisters. The kid from Marseille who won't eat unless he says a prayer to Saint Eloi out loud 3 times, while holding a button in his mouth. And then there's Francois, who buries a chicken foot under his bedroll each night. You ask him why once. He stares at you for a moment like you just questioned gravity. For protection, he says, like it's obvious, against what he shrugs. Whatever took my last tent, mate? You stop asking. Superstition clings to this army like mud to a boot. You see men tuck charms into their coats, bits of cloth, bone, teeth, a lock of hair tied with string. One fellow swears his mother gave him a holy medal that saved him from being shot in the backside. You never see the medal, but you do see the scar. Saints are popular, so is luck. So is anything that gives you even the illusion of control in a world where cannonballs fall like judgment and the weather has a personal vendetta against your health. You've taken up a habit yourself. You rub the corner of your letter, the one from your sister, between your fingers before battle. It's just a fold of paper, but it feels like armor. Thin, sentimental armor that can't stop bullets but might help you stand up anyway. Some men draw symbols in the dirt before they sleep. Others whisper their children's names into their greatcoats. One guy claims if you sleep with your socks inside out, you'll dream of home. You tried it once. You dreamed of falling into a ditch and being sat on by a cow. Close enough. There's a chaplain in the unit, old and wheezy, with a voice like cracked wood. He gives mass when he can, in Latin that half the men don't understand and the other half sleep through. But when he prays, people listen. Not because they believe some do, some don't, but because it's a voice asking someone, anyone, to pay attention. Belief out here is like fire, hard to start, easy to lose, desperately needed. You once found a man drawing stars on the inside of his pack. He said he used to be an astronomer's apprentice before the war. Now he maps the sky on canvas and hopes the gods still look down. You didn't tell him that most nights the stars look like frozen pinpricks trying to ignore you. The sky tonight is low and heavy, like a lid about to close. Someone lights a candle with shaking hands and says nothing. Another man carves something into the handle of his knife, maybe a name, maybe a prayer. You find yourself humming. You don't know the tune. Maybe it's something your mother sang, or something you made up to chase away the silence. Either way, it's yours now. Marching starts with the boots. Always the boots. You lace them tight. Not because it helps, but because the ritual gives your feet something to hope for. Then comes the greatcoat, the pack, the musket, everything heavier than it should be, everything damp from the night, and everything digging into the exact wrong part of your back. The signal sounds a horn or a shout or sometimes just a grunt from a bored officer, and the line starts moving. You don't think, you just walk. One step, then another. One boot forward, the other pretending it's not blistered. The rhythm sets in after an hour. Left, right, left, breath. The sound of hundreds of feet becomes background music. Somewhere up ahead, someone sings a marching song in a cracked baritone. It's off-key, but it helps. A little Claude Mutas beside you. If we stop again to make camp, I'm digging a hole and sleeping in it. You tell him he's already halfway buried. The road is mud, stone, and whatever God coughed up the night before. Potholes big enough to lose a horse, ditches filled with last week's regrets, and always the smell of something dying nearby, an animal. A memory, maybe part of your former optimism. You pass fields once filled with crops, now empty, brown, and trampled. A village in the distance shows smoke curling from a chimney, but no faces in the windows. People know better than to watch soldiers pass by. Curiosity's a luxury when your barn could be next. Midday comes. You're sweating through the coat. Then it rains. Then you stop sweating. You stop feeling anything from the knees down. You shift your musket to your other shoulder. It presses against a bruise you forgot was there. You grit your teeth. Keep walking. Someone behind you throws up while marching. Doesn't break step. Someone ahead of you falls, too slow getting up. He gets kicked once, maybe twice. Not from cruelty. Just from momentum. You keep marching. The world narrows. Boots. Breath. Wind. The ache in your hips. A drum beat pulses somewhere far away, not music. Just the echo of your own pulse in your ears. Every few hours, the line stops, just long enough to give you hope of rest. Then it moves again. You drink from your canteen, metallic and stale. You chew a strip of jerky, so tough it should come with a blacksmith. It tastes like regret and salt. By the time evening rolls around, your legs feel carved from wood. Someone mutters a joke. No one laughs. Not because it wasn't funny, because no one has the energy to make noise. Then comes the campsite. A patch of mud, deemed suitable by someone who probably hasn't touched mud in years. You drop your gear, collapse onto it like it's a feather mattress. You've marched 18 miles. You've aged 5 years. Tomorrow, you'll do it again. You sleep wherever the ground forgives you. Tonight, it's under a bent tree with bark-like scabs and roots that poke your ribs just enough to remind you you're still alive. You use your pack as a pillow, your coat as a blanket, and your sense of humor as insulation. The stars are out barely, a few poking through the clouds like timid lanterns in an attic. No one's cleaned since the last revolution. Around you, the others settle in. No one speaks. The fire is low and crackles like it's trying not to wake anyone. A few boots steam by the flames, propped on sticks, drying slowly. They'll be wet again by morning. That's the rhythm now. Wet, damp, almost dry. Wet again. You shift. Something sharp jabs your thigh, probably a rock, possibly your dignity. You try to sleep anyway. You close your eyes. 10 seconds later, a cough. Then someone sneezes. Then someone farts with the fury of a cannonade. You open your eyes. Claude is already looking at you. Romance of war, he whispers. You both chuckle. Barely. You try again. Sleep comes in fragments. 30 seconds here. A minute there. Then a horse snorts. Then someone starts talking in his sleep. Then a man jolts upright, screaming something about bayonets and apples. No one even reacts. He lays back down, shaking. You hear someone toss him a piece of bread. That's how you know you're among friends. The wind shifts. Cold air sneaks under your coat like a thief. You curl tighter, pull your sleeves over your hands, and breathe through your nose to warm your chest. It doesn't work. Eventually, you find a groove in the ground that fits your spine just wrong enough to be tolerable. You accept it. You've learned to accept a lot, like the sound of rats near your feet, like the smell of feet near your nose, like the fact that tomorrow is probably going to be worse. But for now, the night is quiet. Someone snores in rhythm. A dog barks once, far away. You stare at the sky, thinking of home, of letters, of bread that didn't taste like boots and boots that didn't leak like sieves. You wonder what your old bed feels like now. Probably too soft. Probably too good for someone who's forgotten how softness works. You almost smile. Almost. Then sleep finally claims you. Not gently, but hard, like a fall into something black and silent. The war fades for a moment. Just long enough. Dawn doesn't rise. It leaks in, grey and low and grudging, like a candle that doesn't want to burn. You wake up with a back full of tree roots and a mouth that tastes like leather. Something creaks in your neck when you sit up, and your shoulder pops like an old hinge. Morning. You think, or whatever this is, your boots are colder than ice and slightly more sentient. You slide your feet in and grimace damp. As expected, you stamp twice. Not to feel better, just to feel at all. Around you, The camp stirs like a sluggish beast. Men groan, stretch, scratch places they probably shouldn't, and mutter curses in 5 languages. You hear a snore turn into a cough, then into a sentence. No one's quite sure who said it or what it meant. Doesn't matter. Claude stands up, snezest face, then declares, "I think my toes divorced me in the night." You nod, rubbing your own. Mine filed for separation. He laughs. You both do. Because if you don't, you'll remember where you are. Breakfast appears again. Same pot. Same mystery. This time it smells slightly fishy, which is worrying since you haven't seen a river in days. You eat it anyway. Regret it slightly less than usual. The captain arrives on horseback. He looks far too clean for someone sharing the same rain-soaked reality. His coat is pressed. His boots gleam. And his mustache seems to defy wind. He gives a speech. Something about discipline and destiny. Something about the emperor's glory. You try to listen. You really do. But halfway through, a raindrop falls directly down your collar. And suddenly all you can think about is that cold trail between your shoulder blades. Orders are issued. Marching resumes. You fall in. It's always the same. Line up. Count off. Walk forward. The pack digs into your spine like it's trying to merge with your skeleton. Your musket thumps your thigh with each step like a drum that's forgotten the beat. The man ahead of you farts. No one comments. You pass a field of withered sunflowers, all turned away from you. They know better. You try not to think too much. Thinking leads to remembering. Remembering leads to emotion. And emotion, well, that's just unnecessary weight. The road ahead disappears into fog. Another day begins, and you're still here. They say war is made of moments, but most of those moments are waiting. You're waiting now, somewhere in the woods of Saxony or Bohemia, or maybe it's just some godforsaken patch of Europe that hasn't decided what it wants to be yet. The trees drip rain. The men mutter. The mud clings like it has plans. You sit on your pack and watch a snail crawl over a route like it knows where it's going. You envy it. The snail has direction, purpose, a shell that actually works. Claude plays with a twig, carving nothing in particular into the soft bark. His face is blank. That kind of blank, that means he's deep in it, somewhere between memory and numbness. You let him be. Someone coughs behind you. It sounds wet. You don't turn. Ahead. A drummer taps once, twice, then silence again. The officers speak in low tones under a tree, pointing at maps, at hills, at clouds. You've stopped pretending you understand their logic. You just wait for them to nod. When they nod, things happen. Mostly bad things. The smell of smoke drifts through the camp, not firewood, but pipe tobacco. Someone's pretending it's peacetime. You hear a rumor. Pass like a prayer from man to man. There's movement. Austrians. Maybe. Or Prussians. Or ghosts. You nod, even though it changes nothing. There's always something moving out there. Maybe it's the enemy. Maybe it's hunger in a new disguise. Someone suggests playing cards. But the deck is missing most of the royalty, and one of the suits. You play anyway. Kings and queens are overrated. Time passes like old syrup, slow and sticky and strange. You piss behind a tree and realize your hands are shaking not from cold, not from fear, just from the weight of being still too long. Your body expects motion now. It feeds on it. Stillness feels like a lie. You check your musket. Again, just to have something to do. Claude leans over. Murmurs. Bet we don't move until dusk. You shrug. Bet we move at dawn. You both smile. Neither of you believes either guess. Waiting becomes a kind of prayer. Not for victory, Not even for survival. Just for something. Anything. A command. A signal. A reason. Because this stillness, this half-breath between steps is where the madness tries to seep in. You've seen it before. In the eyes of men who stare too long at nothing. In the way someone starts laughing and can't stop. In the sudden silence that falls when no one knows what's next. The rain starts again. Soft. Relentless. A lullaby for the damned. And so you wait. Boots soaked. Back sore. Heart steady. For now. When movement comes, it comes like a whisper through the ranks. A flick of a hand. A nod from an officer. Then the men begin to stir, not quickly, not dramatically, just the slow ripple of bodies returning to motion after too long in limbo. You rise with them, joints cracking like old floorboards, knees objecting in the universal language of regret. The march is short. This time, a mere mile, maybe 2. You pass through trees so thick the sunlight barely makes it to the ground. Not that the sun's trying, it's as tired as you are. Then you reach at your post for the day. A ridge above a shallow valley. The kind of place that looks peaceful until you realize it's a perfect killing field. You've seen enough of them by now to know the shape of danger. Even when it hides behind flowers and open sky. You take your position behind a low embankment of dirt and loose rock. Someone's idea of a fortification. It wouldn't stop a determined goat, but it gives the illusion of defense. Illusions are the most plentiful resource in this army. Claude sets his musket down, then lies back against the mound with a sigh. If the Austrians show up today, they'd better bring dinner. You laugh once, low and tired. You both know the odds. The scouts aren't sure what's out there, which means nobody is, which means it's probably bad. A cannon stands a few yards to your left, manned by a team of silent veterans who look like they were born beside gunpowder and raised on recoil. One of them chews something endlessly, jaw moving like a metronome. No one asks what it is. You settle in. You wait again. A buzz of tension floats in the air. It hums just under the surface, too quiet to name, too loud to ignore. The men speak in hushed tones. If at all, someone sharpens a bayonet. Someone else writes in a notebook. You didn't know he could write. Your stomach growls. You give it half a biscuit and a glare. It's not satisfied. The officer paces like a man pretending he's not afraid. His boots leave perfect imprints in the mud, each one erasing just a little more grass. You check your musket. Again. For the 3rd time in 20 minutes. Still loaded. Still yours. The clouds drift low. The wind changes. And still, nothing happens. Which, in this world, is its own kind of miracle. Later that evening, you get a visit to boredom's cousin, paranoia. It doesn't announce itself. It seeps in slowly. Like mist, or a whisper through a cracked window. You're sitting by the embankment, jaw resting on your palm, eyes halfway shut, when you suddenly know deep in your bones that something is watching you. Not someone, something. You blink, shift, glance out over the valley. Still empty, no movement, no sound beyond the rustle of tired leaves, and the occasional sniff from a man whose cold refuses to leave. But the feeling doesn't pass. Claude's staring too. Not at you, but at the same patch of distant trees. You feel it, you murmur. He nods, almost imperceptibly, like the trees are holding their breath. You don't laugh. Not this time. This is what waiting does. It sharpens the senses until even the silence feels barbed. You start inventing things. Shadows become sabers. Wind becomes hooves. A squirrel in the underbrush earns 5 loaded muskets pointed at a bush. You shift your position. Your thighs ache. Your feet tingle in that half-dead way they always do when the cold wins for too long. But you don't move far. You can't. To move is to be noticed. And the feeling, the sense is that to be noticed right now would be a mistake. A man 2 spots down lights a pipe. Another snatches it from his mouth and grinds it into the dirt. No smoke tonight. He hisses. No glow. They'll see it. Who no one answers. It doesn't matter. You've all imagined the same eyes in the dark. You've all conjured the silent rifleman, the enemy scouts, the ghosts of men who died on this very ridge in some forgotten war. And maybe, just maybe, you're not wrong. Even the birds are quiet. Your fingers rest on your musket. Not ready. Just near it. Close enough to say I'm awake. Don't try me. The sun vanishes slowly, more like an apology than a retreat. The horizon bruises. The trees vanish into shadow. And then something moves. A flicker. A rustle. A figure. No. A fox. Just a fox. Half the men exhale at once. Claude lets out a breath he's been holding since breakfast. But the tension doesn't lift, because you know the fox is real. And real things mean the world is still turning, which means battle could be next. You lean back against the dirt wall, close your eyes, and listen to the sound of boots shifting, hearts drumming quietly inside chests, and the wind moving through black branches. You pray that whatever's out there is also afraid of you, even if you're not sure you believe it. Night arrives without ceremony. No bugle, no banner. Just a quiet folding of the world into black and breath. The stars blink awake, one by one. Reluctant and cold. You're still crouched behind the ridge. Knies numb. Eyes dry. Heart humming like it knows a song you haven't heard yet. No enemy showed, but that doesn't mean peace. The captain decides you'll hold position overnight. No tents, no fires, too visible, too risky, just you, the dirt, and whatever warmth you can wrestle from a coat that smells like 7 other men and 2 unfortunate goats. Claude is already asleep beside you, snoring like he's in a feather bed. You envy that, the ability to vanish inside yourself, to trust the world enough to shut your eyes. You don't sleep yet, not with the air like this thick, electric, as if the sky is waiting for an excuse to scream. You rest your cheek against your musket, not for safety, just for something solid. The metal is cold, familiar, unforgiving. The men take turns on watch. You'll have your shift at midnight. Until then, you count breaths. Yours, Claude's, the others, a chorus of exhausted lungs and swallowed prayers. Far off, our wolf howls. Even farther, something answers. You pretend not to hear it. Instead, you focus on the details. The smell of soil and sweat, the rustle of someone shifting in their sleep, the way your fingers are cracked, dirt under the nails, like you've been digging for something you'll never find. Your stomach growls. Again, you ignore it. You've learned to ignore a lot. The moon peeks through the clouds, a pale coin lost in a black sea. You remember what someone said once, weeks ago, about moonlight being lucky. They died 2 days later. Still, you look, and for a moment, it almost feels like peace. You think of your sister's letter, tucked in your breast pocket. The edges are soft from handling. The ink is smudged. You know every word. Sometimes you recite it under your breath, not for comfort, but to remember what comfort used to sound like. You wonder if she's thinking of you tonight. You wonder if she knows you haven't written back. You wonder if she'd forgive you for surviving this long. A man groans in his sleep. Someone else curses softly. A third shivers and pulls their coat tighter. And still no one fires. No one dies. Not yet, so you close your eyes. Just for a second, just long enough to feel the earth breathing, just long enough to remember you're still here. Midnight comes with a tap on your boot. You blink awake, groggy but not surprised. Sleep here is never full. It's just shallow water you drift in and out of. You nod, sit up, and take the post without a word. The man you're relieving doesn't speak either. He just melts back into the mud like a shadow returning to its master. You shift your musket into your lap, rub your hands together to chase off the numb, and settle in. Night watch isn't about seeing, it's about listening, and waiting, and trying not to imagine every noise as the start of something worse. You hear the usual suspects, the snore symphony behind you, wind scratching through dry grass, something dripping nearby tree sap. Maybe. Or blood, if you want to get poetic about it. The night smells like wet bark and boot leather, earth and fear, and something sour, like boiled cabbage long since forgotten. You count stars, then lose track, then start again. A twig snaps somewhere to your left. You freeze. But nothing follows, just more wind, maybe a veer, maybe your imagination. You shift your weight. The cold presses back. It seeps into your bones, slow and sly, until it feels like even your thoughts are shivering. Your jaw clenches, your fingers twitch. This is where the mind plays tricks. You think you see something, a figure, a flicker, but it's just mist moving across a branch. You think you hear breathing, but it's your own, bouncing back off the stillness. You think you hear whispers, but then maybe you do. Soft, faint, foreign. 2 voices. Maybe 3. Muffled, not French. You hold your breath, then silence again. You scan the dark. Nothing. No shapes. No movement. You shift your musket, finger brushing the trigger. Not aiming, just ready. A kind of promise to yourself, to whatever might be watching. Then you hear it. Hoofbeats, distant, rhythmic, almost elegant. Too far to panic, too close to ignore. You stay still. They fade. And you sit there, heart steady, spine straight, eyes wide as the night breathes over you like a ghost with nowhere to be. Eventually, your replacement comes. He doesn't ask what you saw. You don't offer. You lie back down in your patch of damp earth, cradle your musket like it's a child, and let the sky return. Sleep comes again, thin, strange, full of images that aren't quite dreams and noises that aren't quite real. You rest in the space between, where all soldiers live eventually. The next morning brings no battle, just boots. March orders again. You wake to the sound of metal buckles and groans, the universal symphony of disappointment. Claude is already standing, pulling on his damp coat with the sort of resigned aggression you normally reserve for peeling potatoes or enduring sermons. You rise, joints stiff, clothes cold, bladder full. The morning ritual begins. Urinate, cough, rub your face like it'll help. Lose a sock in the mud. Find it again by sheer divine mercy. Someone is swearing at a torn boot. Someone else is crying, though you're not sure if it's grief, hunger, or just the weather. Breakfast, if you can call it that. 2 pieces of something hard enough to repair a roof with, and a cup of something that claims to be broth but smells suspiciously like boiled bootstrap. You eat anyway, always. Eating isn't about hunger anymore. It's maintenance, like oiling a musket. You fall into line. The captain shouts, the sergeant repeats it, louder and meaner, because echoing the obvious is what authority does best. You start marching. The rhythm takes over quickly. Heel. 2. Heel. 2. Pain. The man ahead of you limps with a pattern you've memorized. 3 steps fine. 4th one, bad. You follow his rhythm. Not because you want to, but because that's how unity works now. The roads are filth, slush, manure, blood from who knows when. Your boots squelch with the soggy dignity of a wet sponge slapped against a wall. A village comes and goes. You don't even ask the name. Just another scattering of thatch roofs and hollow-eyed children who watch you like you're passing ghosts. A woman offers bread. The captain refuses. Discipline, order, morale. You notice the youngest soldier, Jules, takes a crust anyway. You pretend not to see. The sky is low and colourless, like it's been scrubbed too hard. You feel the weight of your pack dig into the same bruises it hit yesterday. And the day before that, your rifle feels heavier, even though it hasn't changed. Claude turns his head, mutters. Think they remember we're human, you grin. Only on payday, which is a joke. Of course, because pay is theoretical now, like glory, like socks without holes. Someone starts humming a tune. It sounds like something from home, something you didn't know you missed until now. A few men join in. It's off-key. It's ragged, but it carries you forward, one muddy, foot-bruising step at a time. Midday. The sun makes a half-hearted attempt to shine, filtering weakly through a smear of grey clouds like a candle behind frosted glass. You stop to rest in a hollow between 2 hills. The kind of place that feels like it's been forgotten by time, and for good reason. The air is thick with the scent of muskets, horses, sweat, and whatever fermented horror now lives in your boot lining. You sit on a rock that might be a rock or might be petrified dung. You don't ask. You just rest. Claude collapses beside you, his head tilted back toward the sky. I think my bones are arguing with each other. You nod slowly. Mine already divorced. They're just sharing custody of my spine now. Someone laughs nearby. It ripples softly through the group like a breeze through dry grass. No one says much. Talking takes effort, and effort is better saved for marching, or for not dying. One of the men, a wiry fellow named Benoit, pulls out a pocketful of lice, literally, from the seams of his coat. He holds them up like treasure. Court 7. New record. You lean over, inspect the collection, trade you for 3 of mine and half a biscuit. Benoit snorts. Only if the biscuit isn't moving. Someone else mutters about vinegar and candles, supposedly a way to lure the lice out before sleep. Another swears by rubbing onions in his boots. The line between medicine and madness blurs a little more every day. Then comes the cough. Deep, rattling from the younger one, Jules. Everyone turns. The captain notices, frowns, but says nothing. It's not polite to eat during lunch, at least not without permission. The food, such as it is, comes from a dented pot on a bent cart. Today's stew smells of overcooked horse, though that might be wishful thinking. You eat quickly. Hot is rare. Even warmish counts as a feast. You think of home, of meals where you knew what you were eating, where salt was a flavour and not just a rumour. You remember your mother's bread. You can almost taste it until your current spoonful punches that memory in the mouth. The sergeant barks, breaks over. You stand, bones cracking like frostbitten branches. The men groan in a chorus. Not dramatic, just factual. Like the sky is grey. Like the food is bad. Like the enemy still exists. You shoulder your pack, your musket, your fatigue, and march again. Not because you're brave, because there's no choice, because this is the only rhythm left. You march until the light fades again. Slower this time. The road is flatter, but your body no longer cares. It's not about terrain anymore. It's about time, distance, the slow erosion of self into soldier. You feel it as you move, how your thoughts grow quieter, how your memories take longer to surface. It's not that you're forgetting home. It's that home feels like something you invented, a story you told yourself once, by a fire, in another lifetime. The column crests a hill. Below, a plain stretches out, patchy with snow, the last leftover bones of winter. You see tents in the distance, a proper encampment, fires, real ones, cooking smoke. That smell again, hope and onions. Claude grunts. We stopping here, you nod. Looks like it. He doesn't smile. He's learned better. The approach takes another hour. Always slower when you see the end. The boots drag. The spine curves. The musket grows heavier, like it knows you're nearly done and wants to make sure you earn it. Finally, you arrive. The tents are rough, low to the ground, patched with whatever the quartermaster could find. Still, they're better than sky. Shelter always earns respect out here, no matter how ugly. You're assigned to a corner near the edge, close to the tree line. Not ideal, but it means fewer eyes on you, and fewer smells drifting in from the latrine pits. You'll take it. First, the routine. Unpack your bedroll. Shake out the lice, or at least pretend to. Prop the musket near your head. Remove boots. Flex toes. Whisper apology. Ignore the blisters. Someone hands you a small tin of lard. A kindness. You rub it into your heels, which are cracked like dried riverbeds. Dinner comes in a dented bowl, lentils, and something you don't identify on purpose. It's warm. That's enough. Around you, the men start settling. Some sit in groups, some alone. One is quietly weeping. Another hums a lullaby. Badly, Claude is writing again. You didn't know he could read. Either. You stare into your bowl, then up at the stars, the same stars your grandfather saw, probably the same ones Napoleon looks at when he dreams of maps and glory, and the same ones that'll still be there when your bones are part of the soil. Someone farts. Someone else throws a rock at them. Claude doesn't look up. Victory, he says, comes in many sounds. You smile for real this time. For a moment, the war is far away. For a moment, you're just tired. Men under tired stars, held together by threadbare wool and worse humour. And for now, it's enough. Night falls heavy in the camp, like a damp wool coat thrown over the world. The fire nearest you sputters, casting orange glows that flicker across tired faces and soot-stained canvas. Someone's poking at a tin pot like it owes them money. Another is humming again, different song this time. One you half remember from a tavern long ago. Or maybe a dream. Claude leans back against his bedroll, arms folded, cap tilted over one eye like he's trying to ignore existence. You do the same. Sleep doesn't come right away. It never does. Your thoughts drift toward the edges of memory. You picture home, not the real home, but the one your mind edits each time. Cleaner, warmer, the bread always fresh, the roof never leaking, no boots, no frostbite, no lice with names. You remember someone once asked, back during training, what the worst part would be. They guessed the violence, the fear, the blood, but it's not. It's the waiting, the in-between, the long hours where nothing happens and everything could. The slow erosion of meaning. The way silence gets so loud it starts to feel like pressure behind your eyes. That's what wears you down. Not bullets, not Zabas, just time, Jules. The youngest coughs again, a wet, rattling sound. He pulls his coat tighter, tries to hide it. No one says anything. If you name it, it becomes real. The officers meet somewhere out of sight. Their silhouettes flash across tent walls. Gesturing, nodding. You try not to care what they're deciding. You already know it won't involve rest. You reach into your coat. Pull out that letter again. The edges are softer now. The ink faded. You could read it with your eyes closed. You probably have. There's a superstition some of the men have that carrying a letter from someone who loves you protects you from musket balls. You don't believe it, but you still carry it. You tuck it back, fingers lingering on the fold. Like maybe this time the paper will speak. It doesn't. The wind picks up, a low groan through the trees. A branch creaks. Someone stirs. Claude rolls onto his side. You think we'll move tomorrow, you shrug. We always do. Neither of you says what you mean. And maybe that's worse than staying still. You lee back. The stars blink overhead. Distant and indifferent. You breathe. Once, twice. Still here. Still waiting. Still yours. Morning greets you like a slap. A cold one. Not cruel. Just indifferent. The kind of cold that doesn't bite so much as linger. It waits for you in your boots, in the folds of your sleeves, in the part of your neck where your scarf slipped during the night. It doesn't yell. It just is. You sit up slow, bones creaking like wagon wheels. Claude is already up, muttering to his socks like they betrayed him. One of them has a hole so large it might qualify as a second entrance. Around the camp, men stir like sewer soup. Nobody wants to move, but everyone does, because that's the rule. When the boots move, you move. The captain announces inspection, because of course he does. Nothing makes you feel more battle-ready than being judged for the shine of buttons on a coat that's seen 3 winters and 1 accidental fire. You line up, shoulders stiff. The sergeant stalks past, sniffing like he's looking for fear or wine. His eyes stop on Jules. The boy's cough returns, louder now. No words, just a glare, a note in a book. You don't ask what kind. Then, suddenly a shout. Sharp, commanding. Everyone turns. It's the lieutenant, holding up a musket. He found a filthy bayonet. Not bloody, just poorly cleaned. Dull. Rust on the edge like dried tears. You all know what comes next. Punishment. The man steps forward reluctantly. Private Fournier. Older. Quiet. Sleeps with his boots on. You've never heard him raise his voice. Probably wouldn't raise it even now. He's ordered to the front. The sergeant doesn't yell. That's the worst part. He just speaks low and cold. 10 lashes. Not for the dirt. For the example. You watch, pretending not to flinch with each crack. Some don't bother pretending. Jules turns away entirely. When it's over, Fournier nods once. Slow and strange. As if he's more worried about seeming ungrateful for the lesson than about the blood soaking through his tunic. You break formation. No one speaks. Not out of fear, out of fatigue. Because nothing drains a man faster than watching another man bleed for discipline. You return to your pack. Tee your lace. Press your hands against your face. Try not to think. Claude leans over. If we survive all this, remind me to open a bakery. You blink. You bake. He smirks. No, but I like bread. And warmth. And not being whipped before breakfast. You both chuckle. But it fades fast. Because the musket still needs cleaning, the sergeant is still pacing. And war, you realize, has nothing to do with gunfire most days. It's in the silence before. By afternoon, the orders come in, you're moving out again. No fanfare. No drum roll. Just a curt bark from the captain and the sound of tents being pulled down like defeated flags. You pack by instinct now: boots, blanket, bayonet, biscuit. Everything you own fits into a bundle smaller than a modern purse and twice as depressing. The mud sucks at your soles with every step. Someone ahead of you loses a boot, doesn't stop, just limps on, foot wet and bare, as if he didn't even notice. Maybe he didn't. You pass another village, or what's left of one. Charcoal walls, a door swinging from one hinge, a doll in the road. Face burned, clean off. Not people, just ghosts made of ash and memory. Claude Mutas. This place used to be on maps. You nod. Not anymore. The men go quiet again. Even the birds seem ashamed. Then it starts to rain. Not a storm. That might have felt majestic. This is the kind of rain that seeps, relentless, indifferent. It slides down the back of your neck, finds the seam in your collar, kisses your spine like a cold accusation. Your coat drinks it like wine. Your socks accept it like fate. There's a superstition about rain, whispered among the veterans, that it always shows up 3 days before death. No one says it aloud, of course, but you feel the thought pass between you like a shared draught of bad brandy. You march slower now, not from fatigue, though that's always there, but from dread, the unspoken heaviness that clings to your shoulders like soaked wool. By dusk, you arrive at a ridge. The lieutenant tells you this is it, final camp before the big push. You don't ask where. You don't need to. Any push big enough to be final doesn't need a name. It just needs bodies. And you're wearing one. The tents go up again. The fire struggles in the damp. Someone's boots are steaming, which would be funny if they didn't smell like feet and fear. You eat whatever you're handed, barley mush. This time, warm. At least, you chew slowly. Like maybe patience will turn it into meat. Claude pulls a piece of bread from his pack. Saved it, he says. You glance over. For what he shrugs. Just wanted to remember what choice felt like. He tears it in two gives you half. No ceremony. No thanks. Just silence. And rain. Night stretches long across the ridge. A black sheet pulled tight across the sky. The fire crackles nearby low. Reluctant. It spits as if cursing the damp logs it's been given to eat. You sit beside it anyway, watching the embers drift upward like tiny souls escaping duty. You can feel the tension now. It hangs in the air like gunpowder before a spark. Men speak in half sentences, or not at all. Evan Claude is quiet. He fiddles with a button that came loose days ago, pretending to sew it back with thread he doesn't have. You check your musket. Again, not because it's dirty, not because it needs cleaning, but because it's something to do, because fiddling with iron is easier than thinking about what's coming. Austerlitz, they say, or maybe it's something else. The names blur. You've heard stories? How the fog hangs low in those valleys, how men vanish into it like breath. How sometimes it feels like the earth itself is swallowing them boots first. A grizzled man with a scar through his eyebrow, Jean, you think starts muttering about omens. He saw a raven this morning. 2, actually, and one of them was limping. Bad sign, he says. Claude raises an eyebrow. What's a good sign then? A singing corpse. Jean ignores him, as most veterans do. You glance at your boots, now crusted with dried mud and split at the seams. You half expect to see a crow staring out from one of them. A priest walks through the camp quietly, offering blessings. Most accept with bowed heads. Some just stare past him. One man makes the sign of the cross and then immediately swears about a missing spoon. Faith is a strange soup out here. Thin, sometimes warm, always confusing. You pull out the letter again. Same one. always the same. You don't read it. Just hold it. You remember the scent of the paper when it was first opened, ink and lavender. Or maybe that was just your imagination trying to comfort itself. The wind shifts, carries the smell of steel, of sweat, of rain, of horses too still for rest. Claude leans back, arms crossed behind his head. "If I die tomorrow," he says, "tell my mother I hated her soup." You grin. "You think I'm writing letters for you," he shrugs. "You're the only one who hasn't stolen my socks." You lie beside him. No tent, just stars, just clouds, just breath. And the question that hums through every soldier's bones, will tomorrow need your name or just your number? Dawn doesn't so much rise as creep. Up alley. Watery light slips over the ridge like it's afraid of being seen. There's no bird song, no grand horn, just the clink of metal, the quiet shuffling of boots, and the kind of silence that makes your breath sound too loud. You're already awake. You don't remember sleeping. You just remember closing your eyes, then opening them, the in-between part lost to the cold. Claude is up too. His face is unreadable, like a statue carved from frost. You don't speak. You both know what this is. Today is the kind of day you train for. The kind of day that makes all the other days make sense. And none of them. The orders are quick, clipped, and unnecessarily loud. Officers like to shout on mornings like these. Makes them feel useful. You're handed a cartridge box, fresh flint, powder wrapped in paper. You take them like a man receiving his last meal with hands that are calm, but not steady. There's movement in the distance, columns aligning, cannon wheels groaning, cavalry officers adjusting sashes like it matters. The rhythm of war begins slowly, first with formality, then with friction. Someone hands you a scrap of cloth. Wrap it around your wrist, they say, so they know what side you're on. You do as you're told, not because you believe in sides, but because you believe in not being shot by your own drummer boy. You glance around. The man to your left is shaking, not crying, just trembling, like a leaf pretending to be brave. The man on your right is singing under his breath, a lullaby. You don't know the words, but the melody is old. It makes your chest ache in a way you don't have time for. Your musket is ready. You've checked it 4 times. You wonder what will go wrong. Then comes the march. Slow, measured, not toward death, exactly toward possibility, toward the place where fate sharpens its teeth. You move as one body now. A single creature with hundreds of legs and too many hearts. The fog hangs low on the plain. Just like the story said, it clings to the knees, rises to the waist, hides your enemies, hides your fear, hides the fact that half of you are already whispering prayers, and half are cursing the mud. The ground is soft beneath your boots. You wonder how long it will be until it becomes soaked with something more than water. Claude leans ein. Voice quiet. See you on the other side. You nod, but don't answer, because sometimes even silence is a prayer. The first sound isn't a shot. It's a thud, low and distant, like someone knocking on the doors of the earth. Then another, and another cannon fire, but still far off. The fog drinks the sound before it can grow teeth. You keep walking, boot after boot, step after step. The line of men stretches wide around you, silhouettes bleeding into the mist. You can't see the enemy, but you know they're out there, somewhere, waiting, or maybe trembling too. The officers yell, their voices crack with cold and nerves. You try to focus on the rhythm, left, right, left, like a lullaby for soldiers. Someone near the front slips. A musket hits the mud. The man behind him curses. Another laughs. A sharp bark that sounds more like a cough. The absurdity of it all, marching neatly into chaos, settles in your bones like a splinter. Then the real sound begins. Crack, pop, boom. The fog lights up with flashes. You still can't see who's firing. Maybe no one knows. Maybe everyone is just pointing in the general direction of fear and hoping it works out. Your captain raises his sword, not for glory, just as a signal. You press forward. The world becomes motion, smoke, screams, mud, but not speed, never speed. Everything happens slowly when you're inside it. Your musket fires. You don't remember pulling the trigger. The man next to you stumbles. He doesn't fall, just folds, like a puppet with cut strings. You keep moving, because to stop would be to think, and to think would be to remember you are breakable. A figure emerges from the fog ahead. A man in blue, not your blue. His musket is raised. You raise yours too. Then someone else shoots. He drops. You don't know who fired. You don't ask. Because there's no time, Claude is still at your side. Somehow, he's muttering numbers under his breath. Maybe a prayer. Maybe a poem. Maybe just counting to stay sane. The ground is louder than the sky now. Boots. Hooves. Cannon wheels stuck in mud. A drum starts beating somewhere behind you. It sounds like a heartbeat. If your heart were made of wood and panic, you reload, you fire again. You don't know what you hit, but you hit something. The fog makes everything look like ghosts. And maybe, just maybe, that's what you are now. A ghost in training. A soul on layaway. A name waiting for a stone. And then, just like that, silence. Not everywhere. Not complete. But enough to notice. The kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. Your ears ring from the gunfire. But beneath it, the world holds its breath. Somewhere, cannon fire still echoes. Somewhere, men are still screaming. But here where you stand, it's quiet. You lower your musket. Your arms ache. Your fingers are black with powder. Your cheek is warm where it touched the barrel. Your eyes sting not from tears, but from smoke and disbelief. Claude is still upright. His hat is gone. His hands are shaking, but he's still here. You good, you ask? He nods. Then, after a beat, no idea, the fog begins to lift just a little. You see vague outlines, bodies in the mud. Some crawling, some still, some already being looted. Not cruelly, just practically. You've been warned about that. Don't touch the boots. They explode sometimes. Booby traps. But it still happens. You hear someone sobbing. Not nearby. Just somewhere. A wet, raw sound. It cuts deeper than a scream. Officers move through the mess, herding survivors into loose formations. No victory speech. No medals. Just more walking. Always more walking. You're told to fall back to a ruined farmhouse at the edge of a hill. It's barely more than 3 walls and a collapsed roof. But it has a fire inside, and something resembling bread. So you go. You sit on a beam that might once have been part of a ceiling. The wood is warm from the fire, and slightly sticky. You don't ask why. Someone hands you a cup. It's hot and bitter. Coffee broth, melted shoe, hard to say. But it goes down smooth. And it doesn't come back up. So it's a win. Claude peels off his coat. There's a hole through the sleeve. Just the sleeve. He stares at it like it betrayed him. Close. He whispers. You nod. But the truth is, you didn't expect to see this hour either. Around the fire, the men start talking again. Not about the battle. Never about the battle. They talk about soup, about women who may or may not have been real, about who snored last night, about what they'll do when the war ends. And not one of them actually believes it ever will. You lie back on the floorboards, look up at the sky through the hole in the ceiling, and for a moment, it's beautiful. Charcoal clouds, smoke-stained stars, the breath of tired men rising like ghosts into night. No one plays music, but something in the silence feels like a lullaby. You let it sing you down. You sleep harder than you expected. Not deep, no dreams. No peace, but hard. Like a stone sinking in a cold river. When you wake, your mouth tastes like iron and smoke. Your back aches from the floor, and someone is snoring with rhythmic vengeance 2 feet away. It's still dark, but the sky has begun to pale. You sit up slowly. A rat scurries under the rubble. You don't even flinch. Claude is already awake, chewing something tough enough to be bark. It might be bark. Want some, he offers, holding out a piece. You take it, more out of politeness than hunger. Whatever it is, it's hard, dry, and oddly comforting. You chew slowly, eyes on the dim horizon. Outside, the camp is shifting, men moving like ghosts again, whispering in hoarser voices, stoking coals, wrapping raw feet in whatever cloth they can find. A few men share brandy from a dented flask. No one smiles. You step outside. Your boots crunch on frozen mud. Frost glitters along the ground like powdered glass, beautiful in a way that feels cruel. The lieutenant is speaking quietly to a cluster of officers. He holds a map like it's a dying bird. His gloves are torn at the fingers. The orders, when they come, are simple. Move out. Again, the war doesn't stop. It rests, briefly, like a boxer between rounds. You march. The sun rises behind you, weak. Bal. Unimpressed. Your legs feel like they belong to someone else. Your back is stiff. Your breath steams ahead of you in slow puffs. You can smell the man in front of you, wet wool, fatigue, and gunpowder. You imagine you smell the fear too. But maybe that's your own. You pass a group burying bodies. They use bayonets as shovels. Not out of disrespect, out of necessity. You look away. Was that? Claude begins, then stops. You don't ask. You don't need to know who he thought he saw, because chances are it did that for a moment, then the earth took them back. Ahead, the path forks. The left road leads toward a town you can't pronounce. The right, toward forest. You're sent into the forest. There's a quiet there you didn't expect. Birds chirp again. You almost forgot they could. A squirrel darts across the path and disappears. It feels like a miracle. Something alive that doesn't want to kill you or command you. Claude mutters. We should be squirrels. You laugh. A little, but deep down, it sounds like wisdom. The forest is thick with silence and smell. Not just pine and moss, but the damp rot of leaves, the faint trace of gunpowder, and somewhere deeper in the mix, the sourness of old fear. You can feel it in your throat, like a memory trying to crawl back up. Your boots sink slightly into the soft earth, each step muffled. Each twig that snaps beneath your foot sounds louder than a cannon. You glance sideways, often not out of panic, but out of habit. These trees have seen things, and you suspect they're not done watching. The column moves slowly. No drums, no talking, just the creak of leather straps and the occasional cough. Claude walks beside you, dragging his rifle like it weighs twice as much now. This place smells like a church. He whispers. You nod. A forgotten one. The trail winds tighter. Branches claw at your coat. You brush them away with numb fingers. Somewhere ahead, a bird screeches sharp and sudden. Every musket lifts for half a second, then drops. False alarm. You keep walking. The path eventually breaks into a clearing. Someone restores for a break, not because it's scheduled, but because people are swaying now. And a few men have started bleeding from reopened wounds they didn't know they had. You sit on a log, chest rising and falling like bellows. You don't realize how tense you've been until you stop. Claude slumps beside you. Think the enemy's in these woods. You shrug. Probably. He grins. Weak. Let's hope they're cold too. You sip from your canteen water that tastes like tin and bark. Still better than yesterday's brew. Your stomach makes a noise like a dying goat. Claude hears it. Offers you half a biscuit. You break it. Not because you want to eat, but because you both need the ritual. Something about sharing food, even the worst kind, makes you feel almost human again. You look up. The clouds are parting. Sunlight breaks through the branches in slivers thin as blade edges, golden as melted brass. It hits your face, and for a moment, you close your eyes. You could almost pretend this is a walk in the countryside. Almost. Then someone sneezes too loudly, and the illusion breaks. The captain calls for movement. Again, you rise. Again, your feet complain. Again, and the march resumes quieter, but no lighter. The forest closes behind you like a door, and not for the first time. You wonder, will anyone ever open it again? The next village appears like a ghost, half-built, half-burned, entirely uncertain whether it still qualifies as alive. Smoke curls from one chimney, but no one answers the knocks. The shutters are nailed shut. The doors hang crooked. A goat bleats somewhere behind a fence that's more memory than structure. You're told to make camp, not out of strategy, but because the men look like they might collapse mid-step. You find a spot near what used to be a fountain. The basin is dry, cracked like a forgotten teacup. Claude sits on its edge and immediately winces stone colder than expected. Luxury, he says with a crooked smile. You nod, dropping your pack beside him. The stones dig into your back when you sit, but at least they don't bite like lice. You scratch absently, instinctively, from habit more than hope. Someone nearby has managed to light a fire. Others gather around, holding out raw hands. One man takes off his boots and groans like he's just been born. His socks look like they were boiled and then frozen. He starts to peel them off and thinks better of it. You eat. More accurately, you chew something shaped like food. A chunk of horse bread so dense it could serve as a weapon. You break off pieces with your teeth and let your spit do the rest. Claude is trying to read a scrap of a newspaper he found under a cart. This is 3 months old, he mutters. Apparently Paris has a new opera. You snort. Bet the lead tenor has all his toes. A few men laugh, quietly, not because it's funny, but because the sound feels good in their mouths. One man is sketching something in the dirt with a stick, maybe his home, maybe a face, maybe just nonsense to keep his mind busy. Another man hums. Another carves a button from wood. These are the moments no one writes about. Not the battles, not the charges. But this slow unpacking of exhaustion and stubborn life. The small, stubborn acts of men who refuse to vanish completely. The village, well, still has water. Cold, metallic, full of grit. But you drink. A child peeks from a doorway. Barefoot. Mute. You nod once. He nods back. Then he disappears. You wonder if he'll grow up remembering this day, or if he'll forget it entirely. The way villagers forget their names after too many wars. The sun sets with a sigh. The village doesn't thank you for not burning it. And you don't ask for gratitude. You just sit a little longer beside the dry fountain, waiting for orders, waiting for sleep, waiting for something. Night again. À différentes places. Same cold. You curl beneath your coat near a crumbling stone wall that barely blocks the wind. The fire nearby flickers low, throwing soft shadows on faces so tired they've forgotten how to look awake. Claude lies a few feet away, rolled up like a bundle of laundry, snoring faintly through his nose. You watch the embers. They rise like thoughts you don't want to have. Tomorrow, they say, is another march. Maybe east, maybe toward a river. No one is sure. Rumors flow faster than orders a new front. A missing general, a village wiped clean. You learn to stop believing anything until it arrives with boots and yelling. A soft cough interrupts the silence. It's from the old man again, Sergeant Morel. He's leaned against the side of a cart, eyes closed, but still speaking. He tells a story about Italy, about sun-warmed stones and women with olives in their hair, about eating apricots under trees instead of turnips in the snow. You close your eyes and let the words cover you like a blanket you forgot you had. Someone begins singing, not loud, not proud, just a song about a river. No one joins in, but no one tells him to stop either. The wind whistles through the holes in the wall. It sounds like the ghost of the village trying to remember a song of its own. You shift, pulling your coat tighter. Your stomach growls. Again, you reach into your pack. One last hard biscuit. You nibble it like a squirrel. Claude wakes halfway through and reaches out. Eyes closed, mouth open. You give him half without a word. This is what friendship becomes out here, chewing in silence, sharing the last stale bite of survival. Somewhere nearby, a man prays. You don't catch the words, just the rhythm, just the hope buried beneath the muttering. The stars blink overhead, half hidden behind cloud, half watching in amusement. You stare up at them until your eyes sting. And for a brief, disorienting moment, you forget where you are. You could be anywhere, which is maybe why you don't feel so afraid. Because if this could be anywhere, maybe it doesn't always have to be here. You turn on your side. The fire cracks once, like a punctuation mark. Claude mutters something in his sleep. You close your eyes. Let the cold take the edges off your thoughts. Let the stone beneath you pretend to be a bed. Let the darkness stretch like a long breath, and wait for morning to decide who gets to wake up. The frost is already melting by the time you open your eyes. Not because it's warm, but because the wind has stopped. The stillness is eerie, like the world forgot to keep spinning. The sky is overcast, painted with shades of grey that don't bother to name themselves. A single crow cries from a chimney, and even it sounds tired. Claude is awake. He sits beside the fire pit, now only ash and a few stubborn embers, poking it absently with a stick. His breath clouds around him. Slow and deliberate, you sit up. Every bone in your body offers a formal protest. Sleep, he asks. You shrug. Something like it. A few others are stirring, rubbing faces, tightening boots, shaking out lice from their cuffs with the slow elegance of exhaustion. One man picks at a sore on his foot with a bayonet, not out of cruelty but utility. The rest of you pretend not to see. Breakfast, if it can be called that, comes from a sack near the captain's tent. More biscuits. Harder this time. One has mold. Claude eats it anyway. Adds flavour. He says. You glance toward the road. Mud again. Of course. Always mud. But at least today it isn't frozen. The lieutenant arrives with orders. You're to move at mid-morning, somewhere further west, somewhere flatter. There's a bridge that needs holding, or maybe it's already burned. The details are unimportant. You tie your coat tighter, pack your musket, sling the strap that's fraying at the seam and whisper to it to last one more day. The village begins to vanish behind you as you march. No farewell, just soft footsteps and the memory of borrowed walls. As you move, you pass a tree carved with initials. Someone's love. etched in bark before the world went mad. You wonder if they survived. You wonder if they're out here too, wearing someone else's boots and eating someone else's rations. Claude touches the carving as he walks by, doesn't say a word. The road is quiet, but your thoughts aren't. They come and go in waves, memories of before, flashes of home, the taste of bread that wasn't stale, the way your mother used to wrap her shawl tighter when you didn't wear gloves, the way you thought this would all be different, more noble, less lice. You step over a dead fox in the ditch. It's missing its tail. No one stops to wonder why. By midday, the column pauses for water. A stream cuts across the path, clear and thin. You kneel beside it, splash your face, taste the icy kiss of it. It feels like truth. And, for one moment, you believe deep in your bones that someday this will all be over, that you'll sit by a stream again. Not because you're marching, but because you want to, that maybe the world will grow quiet on purpose, and not just because it's out of breath. And now, night again. This one quieter than most. You've made camp beside a long-forgotten road, nothing more than two muddy ruts flanked by sleeping trees. The forest presses in gently, like an old friend pulling you into a dream. There's no village tonight, no roofs, just canvas and stars. You lie on your back, staring up at a sky that doesn't care who wins or loses. The fire is just coals now, red as secrets, humming with the last warmth of the day. Claude is beside you, snoring softly, mouth open just enough to catch flies if they were brave. Your coat is pulled up to your chin. Your boots, still damp, are tucked under your pack so they don't freeze solid. You scratch your neck. Something's still crawling. You sigh. It's never really gone. Someone is writing a letter near the fire. You hear the scratch of the pen, or maybe it's just charcoal on bark. Either way, it sounds holy. They read aloud to themselves in a whisper. You catch fragments. If I return, kiss the baby, tell Papa, then it fades. Like fog slipping through fingers. There's no battle tomorrow. Not that you know of, but that means nothing. The quiet days are the ones that sting later, the ones you think were safe, until they're not. Your body aches in strange places. Your back, your jaw, your left toe. Pain becomes part of the uniform. You wear it without protest. The stars pulse above you, tiny lanterns from a god who hasn't sent new instructions. You blink, then again. Each blink is longer than the last. Claude shifts in his sleep, murmurs something about bread, then falls still again. And you wonder, not about glory, not about medals, but whether this will all fade like a fever dream someday, whether your grandchildren will ask, what was it like? And whether you'll lie and say it was noble, or whether you'll just chuckle and tell them the truth, that it was long and wet and cold, and that somehow you kept going, even when you didn't want to, even when you forgot why. You stare up, and for now, just for now, the stars are enough. The earth is still. Your hands stop shaking, and somewhere inside you, the drumbeat of survival slows to a lullaby. So now you lie still, boots loosened, eyes half closed, wrapped in a coat that smells like smoke, salt, and stubbornness. The fire has died. The voices have faded. The forest has gone back to its secrets. And you, soldier, sun, shadow on the march, you let the silence fold over you like a blanket stitched from all the days you survived. Not because you were brave, but because you didn't have time to stop. Tomorrow might bring more marching, or hunger, or frostbite, or worse, but not yet, not in this moment. Right now, there are no commands, no footsteps, no cannon fire creeping in from the horizon, just the creak of your bones, the slow sigh of the trees, and the soft rhythm of men who made it through one more day without falling. You can still feel your heartbeat, still taste the ash on your lips, still hear Claude's breath beside you steady. Human. Real. That's enough. Let the weight slide from your shoulders. Let the cold soften into calm. Let your thoughts drift not forward, not back, but somewhere quieter. Maybe a field you knew once, a song your mother hummed, a spring that didn't lead to war. You don't have to remember it clearly, only to feel the peace of it brushing your skin like warm wind. Let your hands unclench. Let your yaff rest. Let your eyes close. Slowly, like old doors. The war is not over, but for now, your night has begun. The stars blink above you, distant and indifferent, but they're still there, still watching, still waiting. Sleep. Soldier, you made it through. That's enough for tonight.